Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to my channel. My name is Paul, the Canadian Snowman, here back once again with another awesome video from Knowledgia. Sorry. Yes, history of the United States in 10 minutes. I live in the States, Canadian that lives in the States, so let's catch up on some history. I'm sure a lot of this I already know, but we got a great crash course, I should say, and kind of get like the timeline and stuff. Like, I don't know, when it comes to United States history, like I kind of like know stuff through movies, and just I actually took some American history in high school. But as far as like timeline and everything, am I still like, I guess I don't really have that in my head, like what stuff took place first, kind of thing. And so that'll be really interesting to see, and see if they come up with any details of this. Like, I have no idea. Like, I don't know why I just put it Mount Rushmore. Like, I know nothing about Mount Rushmore at all. Maybe they'll actually say something about that. Probably not. I don't think that's really that big in the history. It might be. I don't know. I'm sorry if it is. But anyways, I know the presidents on there are, definitely big in the history. But anyways, before I do, please hit that like and subscribe button below. I'd really appreciate it. Do a lot of different kind of history and geography videos. Please check that stuff. That would be great. But anyways, let's jump into it. Woohoo! History of the United States. Bam.
Even if the United States of America emerged as an independent country after 1776 and recognized in 1783, the history of these lands is deeper than that. Thousands of years ago, the first people settled in the American continent. It is not exactly known how the Native Americans first settled in these territories, but a theory says that people migrated from Eurasia starting 30,000 years ago, across a land bridge known as...
First, I just want to say, I love how they're going real deep back, like real back. So this is really cool.
Migrated from Eurasia starting 30,000 years ago, across a land bridge known as Beringia. This connected Siberia to North America during the Ice Age. This migration continued until 10,000 years ago. At that time, a glacial period ended, and the land bridge became submerged by the rising ocean. But before we move any further, we want to give a big thank you to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this video. Raid is a brand new RPG game that you will definitely enjoy. The game has an amazing storyline, great looking 50,000 silver.
Alright.
The early inhabitants were called the Paleo-Americans. We
got reports of suspicious people, and we're criminals.
I don't think so.
YouTube one.
Time they migrated even deeper in Americas, and they formed tribes and nations. They created interesting civilizations, developing their own culture. Among the cultures that existed here, we can mention Adena culture, Iroquois culture, Coles Creek culture, Puebloan culture, and Mississippian culture.
Okay.
But another part of today, the United States has an interesting and different history. Speaking about Hawaii, this land wasn't inhabited until the 1st centuries AD. Native development started with the settlement of Polynesian people between the 1st and 10th centuries. Starting in the 15th century, European colonization began. In 1492, a Spanish expedition headed by the Italian explorer Christopher Columbus sailed west to find a new trade route to the Far East, but landed in what came to be known to Europeans as the New World. After this event, in the next decades, more and more ships sailed west to establish colonies and trade posts. The Spaniards began building their American empire, using islands such as Cuba, Puerto Rico, and Hispaniola as bases.
For sure, like I've done videos on the Inca and the Maya and Aztecs, and yeah, the Spanish definitely play a giant role in those civilizations. I would definitely check it out. It's definitely very interesting stuff, because basically covers all that right here. But yeah.
They expanded hugely. France founded colonies in eastern North America, a number of Caribbean islands, and small coastal parts of South America. Portugal colonized Brazil. The eastern seacoast was settled primarily by English colonists in the 17th century, along with a much smaller number of Dutch and Swedes. The first successful English colony, Jamestown, was established in 1607 on the James River in Virginia. New wave of settlers arrived in the late 17th century and established commercial agriculture based on tobacco. Even though there were some conflicts between the Native Americans and English settlers, the colonies managed to expand pretty fast and more people settled in. Each of the 13 American colonies had slightly different governmental structure. In fact, a colony was ruled by a governor appointed from London. This governor controlled the administration and relied upon a locally elected legislature to vote taxes and make laws. By the 18th century, the American colonies were growing very rapidly, and as a result of low death rates, along with ample supplies of land and food, this attracted a heavy flow of immigrants. The tobacco and rice plantations imported African slaves for labor from the British colonies in the West Indies, and by the 1770s, African slaves comprised a fifth of the American population.
Damn.
The question of independence from Britain did not arise as long as the colonies needed British military support against the French and Spanish powers. The French and Indian War was an event created by the political development of the colonies. It was also part of the larger 7 Years' War. Britain beat French forces, and France lost their colonies and territories in Canada and Louisiana. The war was costly, and Britain needed money. The British Parliament passed the Stamp Act of 1765, imposing a tax on the colonies without going through the colonial legislatures. The issue was drawn. Did Parliament have this right to tax Americans who were not represented in it? Crying, "No taxation without representation." The colonists refused to pay the taxes, as tensions escalated in the late 1760s and early 1770s. The Boston Tea Party in 1773 was marked as the start of the Revolution. It happened in the town of Boston to protest against the new tax on tea. Parliament quickly responded the next year with the Coercive Acts, stripping Massachusetts of its historic right of self-government and putting it under army rule, which sparked outrage and resistance in all 13 colonies.
So, like, if they didn't have, like, this whole, like, they didn't tax the, the Americas or their colonies or whatnot, do you think, how long do you think it would have been before, like, the colonies would have revolted and became its own country anyway? Because it would have been probably just a matter of time, but, I wonder how long it would have stayed. Yeah, I guess, because then maybe up until, like, the Civil War time, at least, and then who knows how that would have worked out. Maybe it would have broke off into two different countries at that point, because, the Civil War, I don't know. That's what I'm thinking about. I mean, absolutely no sense right there. I'm sorry, but anyways.
Colonies. Leaders from all 13 colonies gathered and created the First Continental Congress to coordinate their resistance. The Congress called for a boycott of British trade, published a list of rights and grievances, and petitioned the king for redress of those grievances. It wasn't about independence at that point, but this appeal had no effect, and so the Second Continental Congress was created in 1775. In order to organize the defense of the colonies against the British Army. The 13 colonies began a rebellion against British rule in 1775 and proclaimed their independence in 1776 as the United States of America. In the American Revolutionary War, 1775 to 1783, the Americans captured the British invasion army at Saratoga in 1777, secured the Northeast, and encouraged the French to make a military alliance with the United States. France brought in Spain and the Netherlands, thus balancing the military and naval forces on each side, as Britain had no allies. General George Washington was an excellent organizer and administrator, who worked successfully with Congress and the state governors.
It's like, damn, so yeah, Britain had no allies. The United States had, like, they had Spain and the Dutch and the French. Definitely a big deal, because obviously the French and the British, they just kind of finished a big war, and this is, I guess, a great way at getting back at the English, right? But I don't know. I always wonder, like, how, like, if things went down a little differently with the tax, whatnot, like, how much different things would be now. And I really don't think it'd be too much different, but I don't know.
Selecting and mentoring his senior officers, supporting and training his troops and maintaining an idealistic Republican army. The American Revolution was a success, and at the Peace of Paris of 1783, their independence was recognized. And even so, the former colonies gained more than expected. The expansion to the west started, incorporating the Amerindian lands, west of the Appalachian Mountains. A deal was made by the United States President, Thomas Jefferson, in 1803.
All right.
He bought the Louisiana Territory from France. Initial diplomats sent to France were allowed to spend up to $10 million in order to buy just New Orleans, and, if possible, the west bank of the Mississippi River. But the French government said that for $5 million more, all of the Louisiana Territory would be sold. The president approved the deal, and the U.S. doubled its size.
Dang, I guess the French, I guess they were going through some issues of their own. Was it like around the Napoleonic War times? But anyways, it did so much land just to kind of, I know that's a lot of money, but they must have been going through some issues and just thought about this as a colony that they don't need, or maybe it's just, I don't know, too much of a hassle, so they just kind of sold it off. I don't know, but the United States has been buying a lot of land.
In the middle of the 19th century, some cessions were happening, and Texas in joining the Union in 1845, and after the war against Mexican Empire, the United States will take important lands and expand even further. In 1861...
I know I keep pausing. Like, how close was it? Because I always hear that, Texas could have been its own country, or should have been, or I guess because it's so different or something like that. The only time I've been to Texas is flying through Dallas, on trips. But yeah, is that, I don't know, they're kind of just flying through all the history and stuff. Like, is that ever like even close to becoming its own country kind of thing, or not really?
After Abraham Lincoln was elected, some states from the South, the Confederation, attacked the rest. The South Revolt was happening due to controversy over the enslavement of black people. In 1860, the United States was led by Abraham Lincoln, supporting banning slavery in all territories. War broke out in April 1861, when secessionist forces attacked Fort Sumter in South Carolina. After 4 years of war, the Union achieved its victory, and the Confederates were defeated. National unity was slowly restored. The national...
Yeah, sorry. Back one more. Yeah, I was like thinking, so just say, this is all like still like a colony of, Britain right here. They just kind of kept on going, and it was still like all a colony because there was no taxes, there was no reason to revolt or whatnot. Do you think that, like, the South would have been like its own country, with like, instead of like, would you think like Britain would have kind of like been like, okay, you guys can have, since you guys can have the South, we're not going to war. But I guess not, because they went to war over the colonies, to begin with. So I guess they probably would have ended up going to war, with the South down here. But I don't know, it'd be kind of interesting, like what would it be like today if this was its own country, how different things would be. I don't know.
Sumter in South Carolina. After 4 years of war, the Union achieved its victory, and the Confederates were defeated. National unity was slowly restored. The national government expanded its power. The 19th century was a period of economic expansion. More and more industries were created, and also the ascent was put on infrastructure. In 1898, the American-Spanish War is happening. Americans are winning in short term some battles, and at the Treaty of Paris, U.S. is getting the Philippines, Puerto Rico, and Guam. At the beginning of the...
That's right, I was thinking, like, I've done that. Well, yes, I did. I've done that war on this channel. Pretty cool stuff.
20th century, World War I started. Even though the U.S. was neutral due to German attacks on the American ships and due to their intentions to make Mexico join against the U.S., the Americans joined the Allies. After this event, the economy was growing and all was good, until the Great Depression, which started in 1929. This event shook the world and created a base on which the Second World War will start. United States joined the Allies after being attacked at Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941, by the Japanese Empire. Americans fought a distant war in Europe, Pacific, and they provided supplies to the Soviets. Armored cars, motorized equipment, food, etc. Winning battle by battle in the Pacific, getting closer to the Japanese mainland, and after D-Day in Europe in 1944, the Americans managed to have a great impact and to help a lot on the Allied side. The war ended in 1945.
But like a lot of reason I think America's economy boomed after that, or like in World War One, is because they both times they basically joined both world wars light, and they're making so much money on selling the Allies military equipment, right? That's isn't a big reason that United States kind of boomed.
Germany capitulated in May, and Japan in September after the 2 nuclear bombs dropped at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The United States and Soviet Union emerged as rival superpowers in the aftermath of World War II. This was a period known as the Cold War. The two countries confronted each other indirectly in the arms race, proxy wars across the world, including the Korean and Vietnam Wars, and propaganda campaigns. The purpose of this was to stop the spread of communism. In the 1960s, waves of civil rights movements started, rights of voting and freedom of movement to African Americans and other racial minorities. The Cold War ended with the collapse of the Soviet Union. After, the United States has been focusing on modern conflicts in the Middle East. The beginning of the 21st century saw the September 11th attacks carried out by Al-Qaeda in 2001, which was later followed by the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. In 2008, the United States had its worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. A big thank you again to our sponsor. Don't forget to check them out by accessing the link down in the...
And now you can add the pandemic, worldwide, and all the crap going on today. Still going on. I'm sure that there'll be an updated version of this video another 100 years down the line. But anyways, guys, let me know what you think in the comments of what maybe they would have missed. Those the Americans watching this, or maybe the ones who aren't Americans, who think that the influence of their country or just a different outside source, kind of whatever, should be in this video that shaped America, United States' history, and all that cool, fun stuff. But anyways, guys, please hit that like and subscribe button. Thank you for watching this with me. I will catch you guys in future videos. United States, very, very awesome country. Very, very beautiful country. And yeah, peace. I am out of here.